Dear friends and colleagues, so sorry I cannot be with you, and I hope you find this short lecture of interest. I would like to thank very much the organizers of this session. Please allow me to share the presentation, and we will begin immediately. The title of my talk is Transforming Heterotopias and Universal Adapters, Negotiating Unfamiliar Landscapes in Maritime Intercultural Contact in the Bronze and Iron Age Mediterranean. So sorry, it's a bit ambitious, but I'll try at least to address some of the topics in this complex theme. One can look at a harbor as a heterotopia, the liminal space between utopia and reality, as put by Foucault. Also, a harbor, beside being a liminal space, is a place in which people meet. So it can be defined as a universal adapter, that is adaptive infrastructure, providing interfaces for intercultural interaction. And here indeed you see activities in the port of Thebes circa 1350 BCE from the tomb of Khenamun, days of Amenhotep III, in which you can see all this intercultural interaction taking place, foreign ships, people going from the ships into the small shops. Then you have foreign families, top right, meeting Egyptian officials. You have tribute by Syrian merchants to the Egyptians. And then you have the bulk commerce of zebu bulls and storage jars and other expensive traded items. All of them needed some kind of interface that will allow this interaction to happen. In previous research, I suggested that temples, such as the Philakopi temple, were indeed the arena for this type of intercultural contact, being a universal adapter. That is, the shape of the temple, its architecture, the presence of Bethels, indeed persuaded Levantine seafarers that this is good enough or similar enough to temples known to them from the Levant in order to deposit the votive offerings in this temple, allowing this type of intercultural contact. Later in the Iron Age, you have the storage structures from Achziv, Israel, and of course other parts of the Eastern Mediterranean, and similar ones built in Motia in Sicily in the 8th century BC, and indeed all the way to Toscanos in Spain. These are storage houses with long rooms enabled to store, also using some ashlar masonry, allowing to store goods that are brought inside these Canaanite and later Phoenician style containers. Indeed, these are another type of universal adapters enabling this type of intercultural maritime contact. This type of adapters, and indeed this type of heterotopias, did not only occur in the realm of, let's say, reality, but also in the realm of imagination. And indeed, you can see the process of recreating familiar landscapes, the example of the god with the fenestrated axe and the case of the Twin Peaks. Indeed, a god striding on two peaks representing Mount Chazin, Mount Nani, Mount Cassius, and the Amanos can be seen starting from the Middle Bronze Age here on top right on a seal from Tel Avaris, Tel Daba, and also people having fenestrated axes can be seen also in Cretan seals later found in Vafio in Laconia. In the Iron Age, the image of a god striding on two mountains can be found in the Amrit stele and in the Melkart Stele from Brej, the latter showing also the fenestrated axe, of course, which did not exist in the Iron Age apart from deities. It's also wandering, this model or these mountains are wandering together with the god with the fenestrated axe all the way to the central Mediterranean, where you can see them represented in the fantastic ball from the Bernardini tomb, in which you see the god with the fenestrated axe having various adventures occurring between these two mountains that can be represented or can be found by the viewers in mountains in the central Mediterranean. Finally, recent discoveries in Denia, Spain, of a wonderful gold-plated bronze axe, part of a large statue found underwater, may represent that this deity have moved all the way to Spain. In its reality, may represent also some type of viewing the Twin Peaks as the pillars of Heracles or the pillars of Melkart, that is Gibraltar. So you can see how imagination and the will to see familiar landscape in unfamiliar landscape have basically transformed the Mediterranean during the Iron Age. Let me now take you to a bit of unfamiliar, or at least presented data as what we are doing now at the Port of Dor in recent years. And looking at the Port of Dor at the coast of Israel, we are looking at a transforming heterotopia in the Iron Age. That is, there are changes in port structure and in cargoes between the late 12th all the way into the late 6th century, in which every period there is a different type of infrastructure which is changing in order to fit changes in rulership as well as changes in patterns of mercantile activity. At the beginning, you see the Iron 1A bastion of the 12th century, very similar to Cypriot architecture, using large boulders, almost cyclopean ones. After, in the 11th century, the Sikil, one of the sea people mentioned, are building this seawall made of ashlar, as well as a mole now underwater. During the Assyrian rule, there's a need for more formal architecture. So an Assyrian style gateway, bottom right, was built. All of it were excavated and dated by our expedition in recent years, and all of them showing how the seafront, this changing heterotopia between land and sea, is being transformed by the need of every period. In the last 2 years, my friend and colleague Thomas E. Levy and me and field director, our dear student Marko Runjajic, have been excavating 3 new Iron Age cargoes in the Tantura Lagoon south of the South Bay. These new finds enable us to understand new ways in which maritime transport was changing during the Iron Age, and of course connect these changes to changes in the maritime infrastructure. And indeed, these are all areas in which you can see many shipwrecks already excavated, as well as M and L, 2 areas in which shipwrecks or cargoes have been found before, as well as a key or a mole still unexcavated to their south. The first one is of the 11th century BCE, the time of the town of the Sikil mentioned in the Wenamun report, this misfortune of an Egyptian priest going all the way to Byblos, stopping at Dor just to be robbed there by one of his crew. And in this shipwreck, or rather cargo, we see an anchor which has Cyprominoan marks on it. We see a large field of ballast stones, and we see several, now we have 6 or more, because we just began to excavate them, of a storage jars of a type which is likely from North Phoenicia, but was also found in Egypt and in Cyprus. Multispectral imaging was showing that there are also several marks on some of the storage jars, including one in hieratic, as well as a very intriguing one, which may be even in Cyprominoan. Probably will tell us more about the type of trade. A second cargo is the cargo of L1, the earlier L cargo. This is an early 8th century BCE, which includes at least, mind you, we've just started the process of excavation. So we may have excavated only something like 20% of what we have there, likely less. So we have up to now something like 25 or more Phoenician amphoras, bowls that are very fine of some maritime type, and a stone anchor with radiocarbon dates of the late 9th and early 8th century BCE. These are amphoras that also had probably dates, and some of them may have also grape seeds inside, indicating that they had wine inside. These belong to a period in which Dor was still under either Israelite rule during the times of the Amorites, or during the time it was in Phoenician rule before the Assyrian Empire came to the area. So this is a rather intriguing discovery, the L1, because it's predating the Ashkelon shipwrecks, or the shipwrecks found in deep water off Ashkelon, by circa 50 years or more. Finally, you have Dor L2, which is a late 7th or early 6th century BCE, with a Cypriot or an Aegean cargo of basket handle amphoras, a lot of them still preserving resin together with grape pits, indicating that they included wine. There's also at least 17 kilos of iron blooms, as well as a wooden anchor. We just begin to explore them. This is very promising because it's likely that much more of this interesting cargo is still in situ. Here you can see the composite anchor, which is still at sea, which is made of wood with cells of lead inside. We also dated the wood. This is rather a rare find. There's the other closest parallel is at Mazaron 2 in Spain. And the secondary cargo, besides the amphoras, are blooms of iron. They look very worn from the outside, but bright metal in the inside. A small branch of oak found within it also gave us a similar date within the late 7th or early 6th century BC. This will be explored further because it is likely the earliest iron cargo underwater. Curiously, there are also dipinti on the storage jars. We begin to read them. They're in Phoenician or Paleo-Hebrew. They will tell us more about the trade. So this is ultra interesting. So to sum up, what we have is transforming heterotopia or heterotopias, because the Dor harbors are universal adapters. And as such, they need to adapt to changes in Mediterranean integration between the 11th century and the 12th century, in which you had only networks going to, let's say, the Eastern Mediterranean, to the 8th century in which networks went all the way through the central and even the western Mediterranean, all the way to Iberia. The new cargoes present 3 snapshots of Mediterranean connectivity that should cause also the changes in harbor infrastructure. Dor M is a partial cargo of the 11th century BCE, or a harbor deposit, from a time of the construction of the South Bay harbor, that of the Sicil. During that time, Dor is an international powerhouse of the Eastern Mediterranean, as seen in the contemporary Wenamun report. Dor L1 probably belongs to the prosperous Iron 2B, either Phoenician or Israelite Dor, before the Assyrian rule, and to the area of pan-Mediterranean integration. Lastly, Dor L2 is reflecting international trade in the 7th or 6th centuries, the last phase of the Iron Age, just before the era of Mediterranean empires, and during the time of the Assyrian, Babylonian, and perhaps beginning of the Persian Empire. I thank very much my many partners in this research, and I thank you, dear friends.